Seal the heavy steel blast doors, calibrate your radiation monitors, and welcome to the underground survival bunker. You have tuned into the only frequency broadcasting the absolute truth about the ongoing collapse of the legacy fiat system. Today's heavily encrypted transmission is titled, Ripple's Latest Move Has XRP Holders on High Alert. And if you are currently observing the macroeconomic wasteland outside, you know exactly why the sirens are blaring. The civilian population is in a state of sheer panic. We are tracking escalating geopolitical warfare in the Middle East, terrifying fluctuations in global commodity prices, and a legacy equity market that is completely detaching from fundamental reality. The mainstream financial broadcasters are acting like the sky is falling, pointing to the spot price of XRP bleeding down into the $1.37 range as proof that the digital asset resistance has failed. But down here in the bunker, we do not look at the superficial red candles on a mobile application. We look at the structural integrity of the architectural foundation. Ripple just made a move that fundamentally reinforces the concrete walls of this ecosystem. We just intercepted verified intelligence that Ripple Prime, formerly known as Hidden Road, has officially been listed inside the National Securities Clearing Corporation directory under the mighty Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. Do you understand the sheer magnitude of this architectural upgrade? The DTCC is the absolute beating heart of the United States' traditional financial settlement machinery, processing trillions of dollars in securities. Ripple has successfully infiltrated the central nervous system of Wall Street. They are actively plugging their decentralized infrastructure directly into the mainframe of the old world. The retail tourists are on high alert because they are terrified of a temporary price drop, but the veteran survivalists are on high alert because they recognize the greatest infrastructural takeover in modern history. The market makers are deliberately engineering a severe liquidity drought on the surface, utilizing the perpetual futures markets to artificially suppress the price and flush out the weak hands. They want you to abandon your securely fortified position and surrender your digital rations to the institutional syndicates. Do not walk out into the radioactive wasteland. The legacy system is aggressively dying, and Ripple is building the ultimate cryptographic fallout shelter right beneath their feet. Stay in the bunker, tighten your grip on your physical assets because the storm is only just beginning. Initialize the secondary power grid and turn your attention to the resource stockpiles being hoarded by the financial elites. If you want to survive a total macroeconomic winter, you must carefully track where the apex predators are burying their supplies. The mainstream propaganda networks are aggressively pushing the narrative that institutional capital is fleeing the digital asset sector due to the rising geopolitical heat and the impending Federal Reserve interest rate decisions. That is a deliberate psychological operation designed to induce mass starvation among retail holders. If we bypass the public monitors and audit the highly classified data streams emanating from the United States spot exchange traded funds, a glaring anomaly reveals itself. The financial titans commanding these heavily fortified investment vehicles, entities like Bitwise, Canary, and Franklin Templeton, have quietly accumulated a massive stockpile of over $1.26 billion in physical XRP. How is it physically possible for over $1 billion of pure demand to enter the ecosystem while the spot price remains artificially crushed below the $1.40 barrier? The answer lies in the highly secretive mechanics of over-the-counter dark pools. These massive asset managers are not walking into the public town square to execute their multi-billion-dollar acquisition orders, because doing so would instantly trigger a massive price explosion and ruin their accumulation strategy. Instead, they are utilizing covert liquidity providers to systematically absorb the discarded tokens of every single panicked retail investor who surrenders to the fear. To perfectly camouflage this massive resource grab, those same liquidity entities are aggressively shorting the public futures markets. By driving the open interest into negative territory, they manufacture a highly convincing illusion of a brutal, unending bear market. This is a masterclass in financial misdirection and resource control. The civilian sector looks at the negative funding rates and assumes the asset is actively decaying, while the institutional cartels are literally backing up armored convoys to secure the floating supply at a steep wholesale discount. They are locking up the physical float inside deep cold storage vaults. When the dark pool reserves finally run dry and the institutional quotas are met, the resulting supply shock will violently rupture the artificial price ceiling. You must realize that the $1 billion flowing into those ETFs is not speculative day trading capital. It is sticky, long-term wealth preservation money. Do not let them starve you out of your own generational wealth. Reroute the satellite uplinks and focus the telemetry on the Eastern Hemisphere, because a global survivalist knows that you must constantly monitor international supply lines to anticipate the next systemic fracture. The domestic retail market is currently hyperventilating over missed bureaucratic deadlines in Washington, completely paralyzed by the fact that the highly anticipated Digital Asset Market Clarity Act blew right past its March 1st White House drafting cutoff. The weak hand saw that delayed legislative milestone and immediately hit the panic button, assuming the entire regulatory framework had collapsed. That is exactly the type of fragile, short-term thinking that gets you liquidated in a harsh, macroeconomic winter. The political smokescreens are being deliberately deployed to keep you entirely distracted, while the true legislative foundation is quietly cemented into place behind closed doors. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse is still projecting an 80% statistical probability that the Clarity Act officially passes by April, permanently classifying the asset as a digital commodity. But while the Americans play their slow, bureaucratic games, the international syndicates are aggressively stockpiling the network's capabilities. We have just intercepted verified intelligence out of Japan that fundamentally alters the global demand mechanics. SBI Holdings, the legendary Japanese banking conglomerate, has officially launched a massive $65 million blockchain-based corporate bond specifically designed to reward retail investors with physical XRP. This is an absolutely staggering development. A sovereign financial leviathan is intentionally utilizing the XRP ledger to settle multi-million-dollar traditional fixed-income products, aggressively funneling fresh, sticky capital directly into the Ripple ecosystem. They are hardwiring the native token into the architecture of a regulated legacy asset. Concurrently, the network's infrastructure is experiencing an explosive expansion of real-world asset tokenization and the rapid proliferation of the RLUSD stablecoin. Every single time a major global institution interacts with these tokenized assets or executes a cross-border stablecoin transfer, the base protocol algorithmically mandates the burning of XRP as cryptographic fuel. The international banking cartels are plugging their archaic, decaying mainframes directly into the XRPL to survive the impending fiat currency collapse. The mechanical burn rate is accelerating exponentially, silently devouring the available circulating supply, while the retail tourists cry about temporary regulatory delays. Keep your eyes on the global horizon. The institutional convergence is absolutely undeniable. Run the final diagnostic checks on the air filtration systems and prepare to execute the ultimate survival protocol. Because hoarding digital resources without a highly disciplined extraction strategy is a death sentence in this environment. We have verified the massive DTCC integration, the covert billion-dollar accumulation by the dark pool ETF syndicates, the impending April passage of the Clarity Act, and the explosive international utility generated by the Japanese corporate bond markets. So, what is the ultimate mathematical destination of this network when the legacy fiat system finally hyperinflates? Highly classified macroeconomic risk assessments, continuously updated by elite quantitative analysts at institutions like Standard Chartered Bank, have established a mathematically grounded baseline target of $8 per token for the conclusion of this fiscal cycle. To the uninitiated civilian gambler, currently paralyzed by the $1.37 artificial price ceiling, an $8 projection sounds like pure apocalyptic fiction. But to the hardened survivalist who understands the absolute certainty of a violently constricting supply curve colliding with exponential institutional utility, an $8 valuation is merely a conservative stepping stone. A calculated leap from the current suppression trench to that institutional baseline represents a staggering asymmetric return on capital that will completely insulate you from the coming economic collapse. However, you cannot successfully navigate this high-stakes wealth transition without a ruthlessly disciplined framework. Human emotion and greed are the ultimate vulnerabilities in any survival scenario. I strictly mandate the immediate implementation of an automated execution strategy known as the Thirds Protocol. When the network price officially breaches the historical all-time high parameter of $3.84, you must automatically liquidate exactly 33% of your holdings. This unemotional maneuver secures a complete recovery of your initial capital deployment, instantly transforming the remainder of your digital portfolio into pure, stress-free profit. The secondary operational tranche is programmed to ride toward the $8 institutional target zone, serving as your primary mechanism for total financial sovereignty. The final tertiary portion must be locked securely in deep cold storage for the ultimate macroeconomic play, anticipating the network's final integration as the undisputed bedrock of global settlement. You must absolutely secure your private cryptographic keys offline immediately using hardware authentication. Scavengers and malicious cyber thieves are currently roaming the network, deploying sophisticated phishing malware designed to completely drain vulnerable retail wallets right before the breakout. Stay incredibly vigilant, trust the immutable blockchain data, and execute your strategy flawlessly. We will survive this transition.